So I got a chance to see Guy Ritchie's The Covenant last night at AMC, and it was a different experience seeing it. Now, this particular AMC only had this one version that they had adaptive technology, so it was very descriptive, as if it were reading the screenplay of the film. And the manager came in, he offered, the audience, he offered us, if we wanted to leave, we'd get free tickets. If we wanted to stay, we can get a free ticket to come back and see another film. I don't know how this is going to affect the box office, specifically at this theater. I don't know if it went out to everyone this way, or if just this one theater was affected, but we were told that this was the only copy they had. I stuck around because I wanted to experience it in this way. I've never seen a film like this at the theater. And I gotta say, it's great technology from my perspective. From my perspective, I think it was great. It has it describes the film as if it's reading the screenplay, so it is very descriptive. It was very descriptive in a way that I like how it was written. This overdubbing, I like how it was written because it was very descriptive, but it was ahead a couple of beats. It was ahead, so with the description, you knew what was happening just a few beats ahead. But it was really good to know that this type of technology exists for those with disabilities that could still enjoy this film the way it was set up in this way with this technology. At any rate, here's my review of Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. I believe that this is Guy Ritchie's most mature film. His films are very hyper-masculine with a lot of humor, punched up. This one was subtle in humor. The action sequences and the tension were very measured. This was about the story, about heroism, and about faith, and about promises, keeping your promises, paying your debts. It had a really good story surrounding this U.S. Army sergeant played by Jake Gyllenhaal. He's on a mission to capture Tban, who are building bombs in Afghanistan. And Dar Salim plays his interpreter. He interprets the language so that they can pay locals to feed them intelligence so that they can find weapons of mass destruction and bombs, okay? So that's the basic story, but at the heart of it, though, it is about heroism and keeping your promise. So again, this is very measured. It takes time to get there, and that's what I liked about it most. This story would have been better served had it been a limited series because of how it's told and what is left to be understood about the story. Because once we get into that final act, the pace changes. Now, I loved Dar Salim in this film. He stills it for me. I did like this film he was in. I watched on Netflix. I want to say it was last year. It's called Young Adults. It is very good. It's a foreign film. One of my favorite foreign films from last year. It's still on Netflix. Please see that film. But he is very good in this film, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next. The issue, though, that I had with this film is that in that second half, for the longest time, optically, it looked like this man of color, he's Iraqi, he's Dutch and Iraqi in real life. This man of color is risking his pregnant wife's life and his life in his home country when hundreds of these Tban militants are after them. He risks everything for this white man who didn't respect him in the beginning. The optically it looked lopsided, but it does pay off in the final act. Now, Jake Gyllenhaal does a great job as this actor who is very on edge and tinged and just could blow at any moment, could break at any moment. I think he plays that well. There's a point though where it's just overhyped. Like he does a good job. I'm not saying that, but it's kind of over exaggerated because he's trying to petition for a visa for this man who saved his life, and he believes that the U.S. military left him there to die, because once Jake Gyllenhaal's character is saved, he goes back to the U.S. where he's safe, and Dar Salim's character is left there as one of the most wanted men on the most wanted list, because it seems like he's turned on his country. So he's a most wanted man. He's hiding in holes. He's masked his identity. He's on the run with his wife and child. Meanwhile, back in the States, Jake Gyllenhaal's character is petitioning with the U.S. or the federal government to get this family a visa because they saved his life. And so there comes a point where he's overselling it. Jake Gyllenhaal, the actor, seems to be overselling it. And in that moment, it felt like a lot of white saviorism. This is how it is written because this is from the perspective of the writers. It felt that way to me as someone watching this, that the determination was it was about keeping your promise and paying your debt, but it was also about white saviorism. I think the film was great. I highly recommend this film. The action is good. The tension is good because you know the vulnerability. You know, here's what they do, which is great writing, obviously. Here's what they do. They show the family of the interpreter, played by Dar Salim, and the sergeant, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. They show their families to appeal to the audience that these two men need to be saved because they have people at home waiting for them. What we don't see is anyone else's family, because we are not to care about all of the innocent civilians that are affected by this war and affected by the countries that are occupying it. So they do a good job to appeal to the hearts of and minds of people watching it, because this happens. There's so much truth in what's happening on screen. Okay. But it becomes like overkill, and the tension is very high. Dar Salim, the interpreter, his character is carrying this wounded soldier, Jake Gyllenhaal, this sergeant, on his back through miles of terrain, desert, without any food, without any water, unaware of where hundreds of these Tban are, tracking them through this desert. They have nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and Dar Salim's character is trying to get to the army base station where they'll be safe. And then when he finally gets there, they basically arrest him, and as if he's a threat. They don't trust him, and he's risked everything, his pregnant wife's life and his life, for this sergeant who's wounded, who gets to go back to safety in the comfort of his Santa Clarita estate, pretty much, his mansion, to show that he'll do anything to save or to repay the debt. I think Jake Gyllenhaal's character oversold it in some scenes. So it gets a little white saviory there. Optically, there were issues, but deep down, the story really is touching. It's very moving. Again, I think this would have served the audience better had it been a limited series, because there's so much left in the story to tell that I think it would have been better as a limited series. And it felt like that at times with the pacing and the way the story is told. At any rate, I highly recommend this film. It is, again, it's paced in a measured way, very deliberately. It takes time to get to the action, but once it gets there, it is very explosive and attention grabbing. The tension is really, really good. This has some of the best tension, I think, in a Guy Ritchie film. I like this more mature side of him. And I recommend this film. If Guy Ritchie's The Covenant is playing in a theater near you, give this one a chance. I think you would really like this film.